every day. Life, wisdom.
So, Dr. Balanzi, you have helped a lot of people lose a lot of weight. From your experience, what would you say is maybe the number one thing preventing people from losing weight, contributing to this really epidemic of obesity that we're seeing?
Well, first of all, I think we need to look at obesity not as an entity in itself. It's really a sign or a symptom. Just like you can't really call a headache a disease. Mm-hmm. It's disease. It's not fun to have a headache, but there's something else that triggers it. Mm-hmm. So, the headache by itself, even though that's what people concentrate on, if you start looking for the things that trigger the headache, then you've got an answer. And it's the same with obesity. So, unfortunately, now they've classified obesity as a disease, so it can be treated, and it's kind of, in a sense, lended more legitimacy to it as an entity. So we look for causes for that specifically. But the way I approach it is if you get the body working better, then you start solving the obesity because it's a result of something else. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do in functional medicine. We look at how the body's working, and then we improve that function to a point where we start resolving problems. And when I take that approach, people lose weight. Mm-hmm. So it becomes the answer in itself. So if we stop focusing on obesity, even though it's the outward sign, and start understanding what creates that accumulation of weight, now we can find some answers. And it can be many reasons. Of course, we know that if you eat a high-calorie diet and you're not burning those calories, yes, you're going to accumulate weight. But there's so many other factors. If you're highly stressed, if you're in a sympathetic dominant state, as we call it, then you're producing more cortisol. Okay, that's going to interfere with fat burning. So I've actually shifted my physiology from a physiology that can actually utilize fat to one that's going to wait for sugar. And any excess is going to be stored. So now I have an imbalance. Or I can have a pesticide load or a heavy metal load or something that interferes with normal function. Mm-hmm. And again, I can no longer burn that fat, so I'm just going to accumulate it. It usually doesn't come down to just one little gene for any disease. And to say that obesity is just a genetic problem really is off the mark. Mm-hmm. If you're going to even look at genetics, you have to get down to function. And again, by improving function, then you're going to improve the situation with obesity. So exercise is important to keep the systems functioning. Proper nutrition is important. But all of these factors have to be considered, and not just the fact that, you've got some extra weight. Mm-hmm. Because the one truth that I know is that when the body's working correctly, it's not even possible to accumulate excess fat.
Right. So what you're saying is that obesity or being overweight is really a sign that the body is not functioning normally. It's not at its utmost function. And so if we can just restore the ability of the body to function and give it the things it needs, that weight loss will kind of be a side effect of our body getting healthier.
Once you've gotten the function back.
Right. So in terms of the average American diet is something that we've looked at before, and we've got a lot of refined grain products. We've got a lot of fried foods and partially hydrogenated fats, trans fats, which have now been shown that these things destroy the body's ability to function. What would you say are some of the factors contributing to obesity?
Well, you brought up trans fats, so let's start there. If I consume a lot of trans fats, I'm actually going to reconstruct my cell walls. Or we don't have cell walls; we actually have plasma membranes. But the membrane of the cell is going to be constructed differently, and it won't function as well. Mm. So now I've actually upset how my hormones are going to work, because my receptors can no longer come out to meet the hormones. I'm not going to be able to transfer nutrients inside and outside of the cell. I can even have what's called a tsunami effect. Basically, I can stiffen up part of that plasma membrane, and just like a tidal wave would disrupt a shoreline, mm-hmm. they found disruptions on the plasma membrane of the cell that is going to throw off antibodies and other things like that. So basically, I've created a total dysfunction in my body by eating trans fats, and now I can't burn fat and maintain a proper amount of fat in the body, or I've changed my body composition. So it's not necessarily just, well, I got overweight. I started a process that's not normal.
Mm-hmm. So we've got trans fats. What do you think is the role of the general food processing, the role of food chemicals, preservatives, and colors and things like this in the food? Is that a contributing factor?
Well, I hesitate to even call those things food. I mean, maybe they started out as a food that was processed into something else. But when I start changing things and processing, concentrating, and then having additives and adulterative chemicals, I no longer really have a food, and the body is going to have some problems dealing with that. Maybe I can assimilate a few nutrients, but I'm probably doing more damage than I'm getting anything positive. So yeah, now I'm presented another problem to function. I'm blocking my body's ability to work right.
Right. Now, what it sounds like is that, and this is kind of the distinction that I think you were making at the beginning of the video, that we kind of look at obesity, we look at overweight, we see it as a problem, and then it kind of overshadows looking at our overall health. And so, as you're pointing out here, there's all of these different aspects of our health, like our body's ability to break down foods, our body's ability to make healthy plasma membranes for our cells, the body's ability to detoxify, that all of these other functions that are hindered by the diet, that the weight itself is maybe the least of the problems, because that obesity or that significant amount of extra weight is really indicative that the body's not functioning the way it's supposed to.
Well, it's both sides of it. So my body's not functioning right, and I start accumulating fat. And there's a problem in that my body may not be able to put it all in fat cells, so I might start accumulating fat in bone and muscle. And we've got fatty liver is something that used to be caused by alcoholism. Now the major cause of fatty liver is actually being overweight. Basically, I start storing fat in my liver and shutting it down. So first of all, I'm going to have the effect of gaining the weight, and then the weight itself is going to become a problem and even perpetuate itself. So I start disrupting function because I've accumulated fat in the wrong place. And the fat cells themselves are now actually classified as endocrine organs. They actually manufacture in themselves certain hormones. We know about adiponectin and leptin. You're probably hearing about these things in the news. And they completely disrupt the function of the body. And they're being produced because I've got too many fat cells producing too many things that I don't really need.
Right. So let me go back to my original question, which was, looking at your patients, the patients that you have helped to lose weight, what are some of them? We've already discussed a lot of the barriers to weight loss already. What are some of the other, maybe more specific barriers to weight loss that you've seen people kind of bust through that barrier and then they're able to lose the weight that they've been wanting to lose?
I'll tell you, one of the first things that we do with most people is we put them on an elimination diet. And it's a cleanse. We're using certain nutrients with it, but it's not a fasting cleanse. We actually just shift them away from processed food and things that they were eating into a diet of things that are, let's say, in a sense, safer. We've eliminated not only processed food, but many of the foods that cause allergic response and such like that. And so suddenly their body begins to function again because we're not interfering so much. And usually there's some weight loss just in that process. But everybody I've ever done a cleanse with, and thousands of people, feels better at the end. They suddenly realize it feels better to function. Now, they're not thinking that, but they come to me and they say, I'm not getting the allergies, and my headache's gone, and my skin problem cleared up. And all these things are happening, and we've simply asked them to eat real food. So I think that's the biggest barrier. And then the other one is activity. People find that the easiest thing to give up on is their physical activity. They're too busy. It's too much effort. Many people get this idea that they can't exercise or even have a fear of exercise. It's very common in society today. People maybe have tried to go do an exercise program and then they've had an injury and then they decide, well, I can't exercise without hurting myself, so I just won't do it. And then the body just becomes this slow process of shutting itself down because you're not physically active. So those are the two big barriers that I see, is getting people to have some activity incorporated and to start making better choices in their food. And the rest starts to follow.
Right. And I really do appreciate you pointing out that, we think about weight loss and we think about, okay, diet and exercise. But really what you've shared is that, wow, there really are a lot of these other factors. Stress, for instance.
Absolutely.
Not just the number of calories of food that we're consuming, but the quality of the calories we're consuming and what kind of things are contained in that. Simply eating these partially hydrogenated trans fats in and of itself is something that's going to contribute to obesity and weight gain and our body's inability to do the things that it needs to do.
Well, that's perfect because that's exactly the way I start people out. People come into the office and they're okay, how many calories should I eat? And the first thing I say is we're not going to count another calorie. It doesn't work.
No more counting calories.
No more counting calories because it just doesn't work. Nobody does it right. Nobody has the numbers right. Nobody can do it. So let's just not do it. So what we do is we shift them to eating things that are going to be conducive to that better function. And that's what makes the difference. So it is important what you eat over how much. If I get people eating the right thing, there's no need to count calories.
Right. Thank you so much. This has been an excellent, excellent interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being here. Please be sure to leave me your comment and let me know what your biggest barrier to weight loss is. If you're struggling to lose weight, leave a comment and let me know what you feel is preventing you from losing that weight. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Visit us at thetruthtalks.net. I'm Psyche Truth correspondent Karina Rachel. Thank you so very much for watching.